Good day, Father Matt Williams here. I hope you're doing well. We are on day 6 on our Advent journey. We're looking at Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation, the joy of the gospel. We're picking up on paragraphs 50 to 67. We're at the beginning of the second chapter. Okay, so now the Holy Father is moving in chapter 2. Now we're going to begin to look at the cultural context in which we find ourselves. And the Holy Father says, we have to discern with the Holy Spirit. We need to discern the cultural context in which we live in and what is at work here. We need to recognize the signs of the times. And in doing so, two things happen. Number one, we realize how difficult and challenging the world is that we live in, and we come to understand the philosophies and the ideologies at work, and the reason why we've fallen in this way is because we've not built our lives on the solid rock of Jesus Christ. We've not built a foundation upon God and God's law, God's truth, the way that God has taught us how to live, just by following the basic 10 commandments. And so when you jump into this part, and it's very heady, I'm not going to lie, it's very heady, but it gives us a good sense of why he wrote this apostolic exhortation, because we find ourselves in the reality that we're in today because our lives are not rooted in worshiping God. We're worshiping the golden calf, as the Israelites did when Moses went up the mountain and it didn't come down for over 40 days. Idolatry. We can make other things our idols. So I'm going to go to the end first. In paragraph 67, the Holy Father talks about individualism. And, we're created in the image and likeness of God, right? And so what that means is that we're created in the image of the Trinity. We're created for relationship. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Trinity is three divine persons, one God, three divine persons in eternal communion of life and love. We're created for communion. We're created for relationship. We're created for life and love. Individualism is the complete opposite of that. We isolate ourselves. We fail to recognize that we are social beings and we can live for ourselves. We become isolated from other people. We fail to remember that we, by nature, we rely on people just to make it through the day. Like, I wouldn't have anything to eat if there weren't stores that in which people worked, and those stores have goods to sell because of the farmers and the workers that provide those things. We are radically dependent upon each other. We can't live without love. That a man or a woman without love, you can't begin to understand who you are and what you're about. We're incomprehensible to ourselves, John Paul II would write. That the way to discover ourselves is by giving ourselves away and loving service to other people. So if we're focused on individualism, right, and the putting ourselves at the center and having a disregard for those around us, we're gonna fail to remember what it means to be human, and the world's gonna become centered around me instead of me placing myself at the service of others. He also talks in paragraph 64 about secularization, and he says with secularization is worldliness, right? And he says through secularization, faith is reduced to something that's just private and personal, right? And it's true. Like, think of how how problems we can't even put a crush up without in the public square without getting into a lot of controversy, right? Secularization rejects the transcendent. Secularization attacks ethics. Ethics decrease. Ethics are put down. Ethics are start to lose their power or their appreciation. We lose the sense of personal and collective sin. Personal and collective sin. Secularization gives rise to relativism. If it's good for you, it's good for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for me, And we ultimately, and this is true about many of our young adults and our young people, we end up disoriented. We don't have a sense of meaning in life. We have this emptiness. We're not fulfilled, and we're just looking. We're just looking. So we can see that when we start to take God out and we start to focus on ourselves, individualism, secularization kicks in. Now consumerism kicks in. And what is that? Like, we just focus on the material, thinking that this is going to make us happy. This is going to make us happy. Now, the thing is that not only is this damaging for the individual, this is damaging for society, especially for the poor, the weak, and the vulnerable. In paragraph 53, the Holy Father, in 54, the Holy Father starts talking about economy, the economy. And he says to us that the problem in our economy is that we've lost the focus on the individual, on the human being, and we've made the human being someone that we can step on for profit or gain. He says, how come, we'll put on the TV, the market has dropped 2 points here or there, but if a homeless person dies because of exposure, we don't make that a big deal. He's like, we've become deadened in our conscience. He says it's a tragedy, the fact that there are people that are starving, and we have restaurants that throw food away because they don't know what to do with it, and you can't sell it by the end of the day, and they throw it away. He's like, there's something significantly wrong here. He says human beings are themselves considered consumer goods to be used and then discarded. We've created a disposable culture which is now spreading. And in 54, the culture of prosperity deadens us. We are thrilled if the market offers us something new to purchase. And in the meantime, all those lives stunted for lack of opportunity seem a mere spectacle. They fail to move us. So when Jesus is taken out of the picture, something's got to take its place. We're going to worship something else. And that becomes, it could become money, things, growth, power. And usually when we pursue these things, we step on people to get there. And the Holy Father is saying, guys, we need to look at our social structures. We need to look at our economies, our government, and say, is it at the service of the person, of the individual, or is it serving ourselves? And is that deadening our consciences? Is it deadening us? He says that the current financial crisis can make us overlook the fact that it originated in what? A profound human crisis. The current financial crisis originates in a profound human crisis. What's the human crisis? The denial of the primacy of the human person. The denial of the primacy of the human person. He says we've created idols. The worship of the ancient calf has returned in a new and ruthless guise, and the idolatry of money and the dictatorship of an impersonal economy lacking a truly human purpose. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, what is this saying to you and I today? That regardless of what your profession is, or you're in school or anything like that, that if we are going to be sent out, if we are going to live the Christian life, and if we're going to have any kind of effect in the world, we're called to love people with the love of Christ, to embrace Christ in the human person. That our work should always be at the service of society and others, and not use them as a means to my selfish gain. We should always have a great reverence and respect for the dignity of the human person in the way that we care for people, in the line of work that we do, in the way we live our daily lives. When we lose sense of faith and we start to get selfish, we lose reverence for the dignity of the individual, of the other person, and we'll step on them for our gain, because we're going to want to continue to feed that idolatry of the golden calf. Finish with the words. The Pope loves everyone, rich and poor alike, but he is obligated in the name of Christ to remind all that the rich must help, respect, and promote the poor. I exhort you to generous solidarity and a return of economics and finance to an ethical approach which favors human beings. The human person must always be the subject of our pastoral care. If we're sent out, we are sent out to care for all people, but especially the poor, the broken, the weak. And all of the fabric of our society should always be seeking in some guide, or keep in mind, the dignity of the human person and how we're helping those who are less fortunate. God bless you.